Good afternoon and welcome to the March 13th meeting of the Natchitoches Parish School Board. Tonight, our pledge will be led by Mrs. Harvey. Our prayer will be led by Pastor Harris. And if you'll remain standing after those two, Mr. Benefield will speak briefly before you have a seat. I would encourage you to please silence your cell phones. We do have a pretty heavy schedule tonight, so we want to stay on task and stick to our agenda. So welcome to the meeting.
Let us pray. Gracious Father, we come right now thanking you for allowing us to gather tonight. We ask that your presence will be here, Lord, that we will have great perception, that we will hear clearly what the people are saying, Lord, that we will digest it and do according as far as our children are concerned. Because, Lord, at the end of the day, it's about our future, that right now our presence that shapes our future. And we just give you praise, glory, and adoration about what you're going to do and say. In Jesus' name we do pray. Amen and amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Phelps. We would like to take a moment of silence for Ms. Patsy Lou Johnson, who was a longtime educator at Natchitoches Central. She taught there for 28 years. Married to Mr. Charles Johnson, who was a 4-H representative in this parish for many years. Between the two of them, they touched a lot of lives, who are the future leaders of our parish right now. And I would like us to extend a moment of silence in respect for Ms. Johnson. Thank you very much.
You may be seated. Okay. Ms. Rebels, may we have the roll call?
Mr. Danzy,
Here.
Mr. Matuire,
Here.
I'm sorry, Mr. Benefield,
Here.
Mr. Harris,
Present.
Mrs. McGaskey,
Here.
Ms. Palmer, Ms. Phelps,
Here.
Ms. Harvey,
Here.
Mr. Fredu,
Here.
Mr. Nicholson,
Here.
and Ms. Page.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Rebels. So before we start with the superintendent's report, I do want to apologize to you for the way I sound tonight with the pollen falling. It has not been pleasant on my sinuses, so I do apologize. If you cannot understand me, I'm so sorry. But we're going to start with the superintendent's report. Dr. Eloy.
Yes, ma'am. Just a very brief update. We would like to congratulate the Lady Gators, who, between the last board meeting and this board meeting, won the...
And Ms. Rachel is wearing green for the Gators tonight.
They won their very first state championship, and they've been very close before, but they finally got over the hump, and we are all very proud of them. And then also, to close out my superintendent report, we want to wish the Natchitoches Central boys basketball team good luck tonight in their semifinal game against Zachary. So good luck to the Chiefs.
Yes.
Concludes my report for tonight.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Eloy about his long report? We're good. Okay, so tonight we're going to change the order of the agenda, and I hope everyone's in agreement with that. We want to start with the executive report tonight. And before we start with that report, I know we do have several speakers here tonight, and I have your forms. So thank you for filling out the forms. And I do want to remind you the rules that are associated with speaking to the board, and these rules are set forth by the Natchitoches Parish School Board policy. Your time limit is 3 minutes, and we'll keep your time up here. All comments must be germane to the agenda item. No complaints about individual students or employees. Anyone addressing the board must come to the podium or they will not be recognized. And you can come as a family. I know we have several here with the same family tonight. This request must be submitted prior to the meeting time started. So if there happens to be somebody here that wants to speak and you haven't filled out a form, you're more than welcome to do so now. So we'll start with the executive report with Mr. Russ Dancy.
Item 9A, discuss and consider the closure of Goldana Elementary Junior High School for the 25-26 school year, with current Goldana students attending their newly zoned school, Fairview Alpha or Lakeview, depending on grade level for school year 25-26. Mr. Matoir.
I'll offer.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, so we had an offer by Mr. Matoyer and a second by, Mr. Benefield. Okay, any discussion in regards to this item?
I'll speak. I think, again, what I said last week, we were in the same, had the same discussion last year, but this is a different time now, a different situation. Ma'am? Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me now? Thank you. Okay. We had the same discussion this time last year, but we're in a different situation now. And unfortunately, I always said I would vote no, but unfortunately, that's changed with the mill closure, and I think we have to go forward with this decision. And to the people of Goldon, I'm sorry. You put up a good fight, and it's been an honor to represent you, and I wouldn't change what we done last year. As crazy as that may sound, no matter what's happened this year, I do still think it was the right thing to do. What I would ask of this board is that we do our part in maintaining that school, allowing the community an opportunity to use it or get it or whatever. I know there's proper steps and things that we would need to do. I ask that it's not picked apart, piece by piece. There's a BRE for Consolidated 7. If there's something that Fairview or Lakeview needs, that's completely understandable. But to take something from that school that BRE paid for to send across the parish, I don't think it's legal actually. There's playground equipment there. There's a park there that the community uses. I would hope they would still be allowed to do that, and that's mainly what I ask. But unfortunately, I think we do have to go forward with this.
Thank you, Mr. Fredo. Would anyone else like to speak on the subject? I do have a few words I'd like to say, echoing what Mr. Fredo said. I've always said that I would never vote to close a school, and I think we can all agree that we all woke up in a different world once the mill closed, and it changed that for me. And it is very unfortunate, and I do want to reiterate the line item is to close the school. It's not addressing what will be done with the building, what will be done with the property, anything like that. And I know we as a board have an opportunity to do things differently than what we did with Clutterville School. And I would urge the board and the central office not to do anything with anything on that property unless it's cleared by the board, a complete board decision from here on out. Okay, any other thoughts? Tonight, we're only talking about the closure. Okay, if there's no more discussion, then we will have a roll call vote. Mrs. Kanika?
Mr. Danzy?
Yes.
Mr. Matoir?
Yes.
Mr. Benefield?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mrs. McGaskey?
Yes.
Ms. Phelps?
Yes.
Ms. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Fredo?
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson?
Yes.
And Ms. Page?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Dancy?
Item 9B, discuss and consider moving 6th grade from Fairview Alpha Elementary to Lakeview Senior High School for the 25-26 school year, resulting in Fairview Alpha being PK to 5th and Lakeview becoming 6th to 12th in the 25-26 school year. Mr. Frady.
Okay, before we start discussion, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Gotta
We
have
need
a
a,
motion first.
yes, we need
I'll
a,
offer.
I'll second.
Okay.
You offered.
okay. Sorry about that. I did not mean to interrupt progress there. Okay, so we do have two speakers tonight, and the first one being Mr. Brian Jones and family, if you wanted to come up as well. And Ms. Page, would you keep the time for us like you did so perfectly the other night? And if you'll wait just 1 second till she gets set up. So since there's three of you, each one can have a minute. I'm not sure if she has a lot to say. Yes, for sure. Thank you. Mr. Jones, go ahead.
Thank you all for letting me speak tonight. I'm here on behalf of my daughter, Isabella Evans. It's been an emotional ride through Campty here the last couple of months with the mill closing. It's made a lot of change for a lot of people. The closing of Goldana tonight is real emotional. Excuse me. These changes affect these young people to the fact that studies show that moving a sixth grader into the environment you are trying to move these students into Lakeview is
They're not emotionally.
they're not ready.
emotionally and mentally ready to be there. They're young children going into adolescence. They don't need to be forced into adolescence. We have more than enough rooms, empty rooms, and more than enough space at Fairview that we would be able to accept all of the Goldana students.
With 97 students enrolled, about 85 attend that school right now. That overflow should not affect the sixth grade class
And our
being
kids.
moved to another school. It affects a lot of people that are not here tonight that voted on a poll that we put out 57-14 on no's.
And majority of all teachers, they don't want to see this happen either.
We ask that y'all come up with a different proposal.
Please allow us
this.
to have Goldana at our school.
Marthaville
We want
and
them there.
Provençal are not going through this change, but Campty is because of the mill closing. Don't make the mill closing y'all's main concern about this.
That's
Make it
like
about our
garbage.
children. Make it about our children. Don't fix something that's not broken. It's not broken. Continue with the busing of the students that want to do the academic sports and keep our children safe. That's all we're asking. It's not broke, don't fix it.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker will be Miss Molly McNeely for Brooke Williams. And Molly asked to talk for a whole hour, and we told her no, that she only gets 3 minutes.
No,
So-
I do enough talking during the day. So first, I want to thank the board for allowing me to speak. I am Molly McNeely, the master teacher at Fairview. My principal, Brooke Williams, could not be here tonight, so she has asked that I speak in her place. There is a question that our leadership team at Fairview would like to ask the board, and that is, have you done simulations on how this change will impact the SPS score for Lakeview and Fairview? And if not, we ask that you table this matter until there is data for us. And that's all.
Thank you, Ms. McNeely. We appreciate the input.
Thank you.
I would like to say for the general public, you cannot underestimate how hard it is to go stand at that podium and speak your mind. So thank you both for doing that. It was amazing, and it does take boldness to do that. And so we truly, truly appreciate your input, and we will take that with us. So further discussion about this item.
I kept hearing something about safety. If there is a safety issue at Lakeview, we need to hear about it, because it makes no difference what part of the country that these children come from. If there's a safety issue at Lakeview, we need to address that. And what Ms. Williams just brought up is very much on point, that if we have not assessed how it's going to affect our scores, because at the end of the day, to me, as I travel this country, it's about knowing. It's about academics. Because most of the people that play sports or whatever, they're not going to go pro anywhere. But at the end of the day, too, by playing sports, I can remember doing my best during whatever season it was that I played every sport that there was. But at the end of the day, it ought to be about how does it affect our children. Because I was caught up in the situation when we had the consolidation, and it wasn't about children. It was about parents. It was about teachers and everybody else. But when we did consolidate, it probably was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I got a chance to meet some wonderful people in my life. So.
Thank you, Mr. Harris.
I would say one of the reasons this was brought up and has been talked about, which if we have another agenda item on the agenda, if that happens, Lakeview, Fairview, sixth grader would be the only ones in the parish that are not attached to a middle school. There are other sixth graders. The rest of the sixth graders in this parish are with seventh, eighth grade. I do understand Lakeview does have a high school side. I mean, they are high school. Lakeview is a different layout. It is a different setting. You can keep them separate. They're not going to be in classes with 12th, 11th graders. There are different lunch shifts. I'm sure they would see them at times, yes, but not often. And I know it's not just about sports and extracurricular, obviously academic. Yes, it is the most important thing. I agree 100%. There should not be a fall off from Fairview to Lakeview. If there is, then shame on us. We should be doing a better job. I think Lakeview has, in this past year, made a big turnaround. I got a lot of those phone calls the past 2 years from Lakeview, and I can promise you that phone has not rang near as much this year with concerns or complaints. It's been a lot better out there. I understand the reputation that Lakeview has had in the past. I do. But I think it is just that, a reputation. My daughter attends Natchitoches Central. I can tell you there are a lot of issues and things that go on up at that school that don't get talked about. There are fights up there. Lakeview has probably had less this year. I don't know. I could be wrong. I'm going to say that. I could be absolutely wrong.
Definitely
But,
have.
I mean, there are issues at every school. And as far as what the community is going through with the mill closure, I can relate with that 100%. I live in Campty. I worked at that paper mill. When the announcement was made, my phone rang at, I don't know, probably 8-something from one of the guys that I worked with. I pulled over on the side of the road when he told me. So it hits home to me, too. I think if we sell this and we're negative in front of these children, it will affect them. But if this decision is made and we encourage it, they'll be excited about it. I went there in the 7th grade. I was excited about it. It is about providing that middle school feel and letting them get other opportunities. As far as the SPS goes, I don't think I can answer that. That would be a Dr. Eloy question. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not real big on the scores. I understand that y'all put a lot of work into that, and I applaud you for that. Lakeview has been a B school for I don't know how many years now. So I would say that they are a good school, in my opinion. A B's good. It was when I was in school.
We've had
and we talk about there's been safety concerns. Just like Pastor Harris said, if they're not going to be any less safe at any school in the parish, in my opinion. If it's safety because they're around older kids and there may be a fight or something, I get that point. I see what you're talking about there. And I know there's a post out about it specifically said there were administrative issues at Lakeview that need to be addressed, and I think that's been done. I can attest to that. I do believe that's been done. The talking about busting the kids over for activities, it may be happening, but I can tell you it's not ideal. They get there late, or they're not on. There's been practice, or the things have been going on for fourth block, and by the time they get there, a lot of that time has went by, so they don't get the whole feel. Goldonna has been busting some kids over for baseball and softball, and it's been working somewhat, and I can tell you those kids are loving it. I've had a couple of parents reach out to me and tell me that their kids will be at Lakeview next year, and 2 years ago they said they wouldn't have been. And now that they're able to do this, they're getting to know the principal and the kids there, and they're ready to be a part of it. Again, I understand parents' concerns. I'm a parent, and I'm open to hear it all. But I presented this. I'm for this. I think it's a good move, and I think it can make the community stronger in a way. And I think if maybe there's a parent out there that says they're not going to send their kid, well, like I said last week, they weren't going to send them in 7th grade, most likely. The 6th graders will be, if they went next year as 6th graders, the 7th graders that they're with are the same classmates they have this year. The 8th graders that they're going to be around in the hallways are the same ones they were at Fairview with last year. I think they would get into that swapping classes earlier and things like that. We have juniors now doing dual enrollment in this thing and things like that. So the world has changed. It would prepare them sooner, and that's my opinion on it.
So,
Thank you, Mr. Frady.
so real quick, to Pastor Harris and Mr. Fredo, I apologize to the board. I have not directed my staff to do simulations, just to be totally transparent, because we've been super busy with a lot of other stuff on the agenda. We are capable of doing simulations. It would be something that we would have to get to y'all over the course of probably, perhaps, definitely by another board meeting, but also perhaps if we're having a board retreat at the end of March. I could work on a few different simulations, because remember, accountability is changing, but that is something we would have to get to you at a later date.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
And I think if it's a time for us to do anything, it would be now. And I think it's more about talking points right now, that we can come together and talk about how it would look and things like that. Because one of the things I don't want to happen is for those schools on that side that we fight so hard for, those schools on that side to start fighting one another. Because I deal with two schools that's not in our district that I'm trying to keep folks from going over into Wynn Parish and over into Bienville Parish. And I think we have everything, and we have all the parts that we need between those schools, whether it be Lakeview or Fairview or even Goldana, to make us a school, being that Lakeview is a B school. I know what we've had to do to even recruit teachers to be there. So, it's hard to get folks to come on that side. We can sit down and talk about it, and to make sure that whatever decision we come up with, it'll be a smooth transition or continue to do what we've been doing.
Thank you, Pastor Harris. Anyone else?
Question is, will the kids that will be transferred, will they be physically separated from the high school, since the question has been posed in regards to safety issues?
We
Be
have,
on the same campus but physically
on the same
separated
campus,
from the
but
high school?
to what Mr. Fredo said, there is really two sides of Lakeview, a junior high side and a high school side.
Yes, ma'am. The only shared space really at Lakeview is the library and the cafeteria. And I think if they're on separate schedules, there wouldn't be a reason for them.
They even have two gyms.
They even have two gyms.
That's great.
Yes.
I knew that they were just Lakeview Junior High and Senior. Just wanted to make sure that that question, in case it came up, was answered. Will continue to be, separated for safety.
And just to be honest with you, unbeknown to me, learning later on that school was actually one of the only schools in the district that was actually designed for a K-12. I didn't know nothing about that.
You were younger at the time.
I was gone by that time. I was out of there.
Well, and with that being said, we do have 4 board members who attended Campty Lakeview schools, and I think we're all very proud of that. And we have Mr. Nicholson, who taught there, coached there, and so we're very proud of Lakeview School. And I was sharing with the Jones family prior to the meeting that whenever my oldest daughter went from elementary lab school to middle lab school, she, in fact, was going to be a 6th grader on campus with 7th and 8th graders. And even though I was so excited about her going to that school, it is a hard pill to swallow that your baby is going to school with 7th and 8th graders, because they kind of look like adults at that age and 6th graders don't. And it is a hard pill to swallow, but I will tell you that both of my daughters, being a 6th grader on a middle school campus like that, had the time of their life. They did love it. And if it does pass, I have every confidence in the world that the staff will be amazing and your children will be happy.
To Pastor Harris' comment about, not wanting the schools to be against one another or anything like that, and that, I will say that's this is not being proposed because one or the other is not doing something they should or should not do. I mean,
Right.
what Fairview has done has been great. All the growth, I mean, the numbers show it. At the beginning of the year, they had a day where the staffs got together.
Right, that was
With
awesome.
Fairview and Lakeview, we were invited out, got to see that. It was great. Yeah, this is definitely not something to have any animosity anywhere or anything like that. So I just wanted to say that.
And change is very hard, but I feel like our district is going to see a lot of changes in the next couple of years. And we'll be looking for efficiencies and things of that nature too. So we do have a lot of change coming and good things for our district. Is there any other discussion before we vote? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Danzy?
Yes.
Mr. Matoyer?
Yes.
Mr. Benefiel?
No.
Mr. Harris? I'm sorry, say again. Did you
No.
cast a vote?
No.
Mrs. McGaskey?
Yes.
Ms. Phelps?
Yes.
Ms. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Fredo?
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson?
Yes.
And Ms. Page?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. Mr. Danzy.
Item 9C, discuss and consider approving Natchitoches Parish School Board City School rebanding proposal to be implemented for the 25-26 school year to include Weaver Elementary, 3rd to 5th, same building. Natchitoches Junior High, 6th to 8th, move to the current Magnet Building. East Natchitoches, site closure. Natchitoches Magnet, move to the current East Natchitoches Building. And Mr. Matoyer.
I'll offer.
Okay, we have an offer by Mr. Matoyer.
I'll second.
A second by Ms. Page. And we do not have any speakers on this item tonight. I have no forms for that. So board members, do you have any questions, concerns, comments?
I'd like to make a comment, please.
Yes, ma'am.
In reference to the board's consideration for closure, I was able to go with Ms. Harvey recently, and our superintendent, along with Mr. Shirley, were present. We had went over to check the building out firsthand, so we could see for ourselves what the status of the condition at that particular facility. We went on a day after the rain had occurred. The principal had notified us that that was one of the worst days, whereby there was so much leaking going on in the building, all over the building. And we could see the extent of the damage. You can see on the day the damage more. It's more apparent when you go over on the day after the rain. I'm here today, and I've had surgery recently, and I came out because this was important for me to be here just to give some input because I had the opportunity to be there. And just to advise you all that are present here and those that have made some comments about the board closing the school and moving the students, well, we're acting in the best interest of these kids and the employees there. That school is in bad shape. We saw buckets all over the building because the building is leaking all over. There are places where in the ceiling and in the floor, you see where there is mold all over the school, in the hallways, in the classrooms, in the library, in the cafeteria. And we didn't have the opportunity to see all of the school because we didn't want to disrupt the classes. But I'm saying to you that we're doing this because we want the kids to be safe. We want them to be in an environment whereby they're going to feel that they're comfortable. We're concerned about academics. Academics is number one. Safety is also a number one priority for us. So we have the responsibility to act in the best interest of these students. If any of the parents or concerned citizens had questions. We got a report. We got a concise, detailed report that indicated damage. This is an old building. The damage is consistently getting worse. We need to act and not delay closing this building. Believe me when I say it was a sad day to go and see how these kids and these employees are having to deal with these conditions ongoing, especially after rains and storms. And I can say that we cannot continue to put the monies into that school. It's an old building. It's a very old building. There's a lot of damage that's been done to that school. You know, it's sat vacant for quite a few years. Since I've been on the board in 2018, we have always done repair at all the schools that were in need of repair. But we cannot continue to put money into a school that we don't have the funds to continue to repair and replace. We don't have the funding to pay $1.2 million for the roof, and it's going to take us $10 million to go in and repair the building completely. Y'all know this climate now is that they're trying to close down the Board of Education. Where are we going to get funding to put into one building? We've had rebanding before the kids adjusted, and I think they'll be okay when we do the changes now. They're complaining about kids being bused. Kids are bused every day. It's going to be in the city. It's not a black-white issue. The kids in this city, the majority of the kids attending those schools are African-American throughout the city, except for the lab school. So it's not a black-white issue. It's not that we are not acting. We are acting. That's our priority, to do what's best for the kids and employees. And that is my input in regards to this situation.
Ms. McGaskey, thank you so much for being here. I know it was hard for you to get here, and we appreciate that, and thank you for those thoughts.
After that passion, I'm questioning if you really had surgery or not.
Believe me, I'm feeling it. I'm just 2 weeks out.
I have something to say. I would like to move that we table this issue. Because last week it was very clear that we do not have a concrete plan. There are a lot of logistics that need to be worked out, and we owe it to the community to present that. I'm sure the administration has been working on those things that were talked about last week. But at the same time, we need to present it to the community and allow them to see that we have a plan. Because right now it looks like we're about to close a building. We don't know how the kids are going to get to the school. We don't know if they're going to be able to use those medical services. We don't know if about how the facility is going to be maintained after. And that will not be fair to Breedertown or anybody else that's around there. We need a concrete plan. The Bible says, write the vision, make it plain. And that's what we need to do instead of vote to close that school tonight without a plan, or without a plan to present to the community. We need to be transparent, and we need to be clear. I live in Breedertown, and I walk back there all the time. I want to know what's going on with the school after it's closed. Is it going to be a basketball court? And I heard that last week. But at the same time, I'm like, well, what's the point of us closing if we're going to keep it open for a basketball game or a basketball practice or a community center? So we need a plan. And if we vote tonight to close that school, we're not going to look like we got it together. We need a plan, a concrete plan to present to the community and let them know from start to finish what is going to happen, how it's going to happen, what's going to happen with their kids, what's going to happen with those medical services, what's going to happen with all those questions that they came with legit questions that we could not answer clearly.
Thank you, Ms. Palmer. Mr. Harris.
So the question is, though, we have a report, air quality report, right?
Yes, sir.
And though it says that it doesn't meet the level where there is, mold and toxins that would harm the children at this particular point.
The only thing that they have is allergens,
Allergen.
naturally occurring that are still there. But what the expert told us is that this would be something we would have to monitor at all times because the moisture penetration is still occurring.
Okay, so let's remember, when this thing first started and we moved into this building, it was able to be inhabited, right? So a couple things happened that I didn't mention the last time. There was a storm that came. The first storm, I think it was an ice storm or
Hurricane Laura was the first.
yeah, hurricane.
And then an ice storm as
Okay.
well.
Category 2 hurricane.
Okay, so that started some damage. Weren't able to do any fixing, done some patching or whatever the case may be. During that time, then an ice storm came, right? So this thing seems to be getting worse and worse. Now I understand what you're saying, that we've got some questions that's being asked that's legitimate. But I don't think nobody refutes the fact that that building is not conducive. That building. Now, there's other parts of this thing, of this plan or semi-plan or whatever the case may be. But for sure, but for sure, I would not want my children to continue to be in that particular building. We're going to have to move them, even if we are not going to close it permanently. We're going to have to move them.
Well, I didn't say not close it. I said come with a plan. We still have time this school year to come with a plan.
Right. But are we going to leave them there while we come up with a plan?
They're there now.
Okay.
So the only
Just asking.
the only thing I would say, and I respectfully disagree to a point with you, Ms. Palmer, and we're still going to be friends after this, because
I don't know.
Please, let's be friends.
I don't know.
oh, you know how to.
I'm telling you, like, for real though.
I know, but-
really.
but
How?
what I'm
No,
saying
because
is-
we do not. What's gonna? I'm gonna act like I'm not on the board and I just live in Breeder Town. What is gonna happen once they do not occupy that building, August 2025? What's gonna be going on with the building?
Yes, ma'am. So I think a lot of the questions that were asked, like you said, were legitimate questions.
What's gonna happen with the building in 2025?
I'm trying to get around to it.
I'll just go straight to it. What's
ma'am,
going to
I'm-
happen with the
let's
building?
not interrupt so
in
we can finish that thought.
2025, August 2025, when nobody's in that building. What is going on with it?
Okay, so like I said, what I wanted to start with by saying, and I'm going to answer your question, I promise, is that a lot of the questions that were asked were not able to be answered completely because of the passion in the room. I can guarantee you that even if it wasn't completely said because there was a lot of talking, a lot of passion, there is a very meticulous, very detail-oriented plan that has been gone over multiple times for hours at a time by 10 people, director level. The one question that was asked that did catch everyone a little bit of, oh, we do need to look at that, was the fact that LP Vaughn has a health center that is sometimes utilized by NJH. And so that was just something, because it's at LP Vaughn, that was like, oh, we do need to address that. The easy, very simple answer that we talked about this week is two things. Number one, we are going to have some displaced nurses. So there will be an ability to obviously have at least one nurse at this new school, possibly two. And then in lieu of that, because that's doing some of the basic things, but then what can also occur is that we can, as I've discussed, get an activity bus specifically for that school to where those students can have certain dates of the month where they can go over there for flu clinics and vaccination clinics or and different things like that they already have. So that's answer one for that. The other question, and I did answer this at the town hall, but the person I told everything to disagreed with me with. In August of 25, what we believe we will do, and I've talked to Mr. Kozad about this, I've talked to Mr. Shirley about this, and I've talked to Mr. Wascom. The lessons we learned from Clutcheville. Number one, and this is what some people question me on, we will not turn off the electricity. The problem with turning off electricity is as soon as you do that, people come in and they have access to get the copper. That is rule number one. And also, when you have lights on and you have lights still going outside, it is somewhat of a deterrent for people breaking and entering. Second piece, Mr. Kozad is removing most of the internet connectivity, but he is keeping the internet connectivity at a level to where we will still have cameras monitoring the building, with the exception of the cameras that are currently in the SPED classrooms. Those will be removed and moved to another site. But the cameras that are kind of like just monitoring the comings and goings would remain. Number three, the maintenance staff would keep the building on the mow schedule with Payne's Lawn Service. So think back to whenever we thought that we owned the Head Start MLK building and it was in such nasty disrepair. That won't happen because they will be on the normal schedule. If Magnet gets mowed twice a week and every other school that's functioning gets mowed twice a week, and for that matter, I'm speaking of Goldana too, these schools will still get mowed even if there are not students at the location. The final part, and I know that this, I don't disagree when people kind of roll their eyes at this and question the rationale and logic of it. We have a building that is really in two different pieces. You have the gymnasium and you have the rest of the building. The gymnasium is in relatively good shape with the exception of the leak. In terms of the things that Ms. McGaskey spoke about, it is not as bad as the rest of the building, but there is significant leaks. Obviously, we all know that because a game got canceled that day because it was leaking. But we also know, unfortunately, the reality that we have too few gymnasium or competition level basketball courts in our parish. So sure, we could say, no, we're not going to use it because we're shutting down the whole building, but that would put us in a bind. So we are saying when it's not raining, and also because when there is some foot traffic there, again, more foot traffic means less people thinking they can break in, then we would utilize that when we were able to. Again, utilizing that activity bus. The football field is a totally separate issue. That's still something that it's totally separate and we should still be utilizing. And then finally, the last thing that I think is important is that as long as this building is part of our insurance, we have a responsibility, financially, legally, whatever you want to call it, to take care of the building. And so while that is maintained, I have asked Mr. Shirley and Mr. Fred for their team to be at that building at least once a week so that if things occur, naturally occurring things, say a kid throws a rock through the window, we would still be fixing those things based on BRE. So
But you don't see how that sounds hypocritical?
Which part?
All of it. Because the fact is that I'm under the impression that the roof is the main reason, the gym is the main reason why we're closing this building down, because we're putting so much in this gymnasium. But now we're going to keep it open? Well, if that's the case, you can keep the whole entire school open, because if it rains, the kids don't have to go in the gym that day. You're allowing the building to still be open.
Ms. Palmer.
Do not do that. Because, we sound very hypocritical right now. I know y'all know we do, right? So if we're going to keep this building open, this gym open, why not keep it open for the school, for the kids to go to school? Now, I was looking at aesthetics. Like, I know what it looks like, right? But and you said the air quality was fine, right? So it got mold in it, right? So, yeah, I'm in all favor of moving because of the aesthetics. But now we're talking about keeping it open for whatever. So after August 2025, nobody's in, and we keeping the lights on, we keeping the internet going, so nobody won't go in there and steal the copper and all that. What's going to happen in December? What's going to happen in January? We still we're going to have a school sitting there open with lights on that we still putting money into. We still paying people to go over there and take care of it, but we don't have kids in it. It does not make sense. And I know y'all know that.
Ms. Palmer, in reference to the comments that you just made, I'm not in agreement. We normally agree on a lot of stuff. But have you been to that building?
Miss
after the
Dye,
rain?
I worked.
Have you been to the
I
building
worked.
after the
I
rain?
worked in the building. I know what it looks like. But what do you understand what I'm saying?
I understood
We're
what you
going to
said.
keep the building open for whatever reasons. Basketball, gym, because we don't have enough gyms.
Just the
Why
gym.
are we closing it?
Just the
Why are we closing it?
The rest of the
Hey,
Why
board
are
members.
we closing it?
I call for question.
Why are we
Board
closing
members,
it?
we will follow decorum in our meeting.
Why
We will
are we
follow
closing it?
professionalism.
I call for question.
I have a second on that question.
Y'all be dead wrong if y'all vote today.
Okay. We have a
Y'all do
motion.
not have a
We have a
plan, and it's
second.
not fair to the community. It is not. Y'all do
We're
not
ready
have a
to
plan
vote,
for
Miss-
this.
Ms. Rebels, we're ready for a roll call vote.
I'm sorry, it does, and y'all know it.
May I?
And we're voting
We're
on the
voting. We have a
question.
call for
We're
question.
voting on the question right now, which means that we're going to either cease debate or continue debate. And a yes vote means we cease debate and vote on the prior item. A no vote means that we will continue debate.
So she did have a motion on the table to
But it did have no
table
second.
this, but it had no second. So that motion is dead. So now we have call for question. And as Mr. Benefield so greatly stated, yes would be to move on from discussion, and
Note that nobody can really answer why we're
B-
closing this building.
and B
Nobody
would
can
be to
answer
cease
that.
discussion.
Note that.
Can I
Note
have-
that.
May I have?
You're still keeping it open.
We need
Still
to
keeping the
need to
school
cut-
open.
Vote on the question.
Yes, we have a vote, Ms. Rebels.
Okay, I gotta put it into the system. Give me just a second.
Whether to keep discussion going or move on with a vote. Mr. Benefield, do you mind restating that?
There was a call from a question by Mr. Danzy and a second by myself, which means at this point, we cease debate and vote. A yes vote means we will no longer debate this item and move to the original motion made by Mr. McTwire. A no vote means you want to continue to talk about it. At this time, debate is ceased until we vote on this.
And we're ready whenever you are, Ms. Rebels.
And that was Mr. Danzy and Mr. McTwire. I'm sorry, Mr. Danzy and Mr. Benefield.
Benefield, yes, ma'am.
Mr. Danzy,
Yes.
Mr. McTwire.
Yes.
Mr. Benefield.
Yes.
Mr. Harris.
Yes.
Mrs. McGaskey.
Yes.
Ms. Palmer.
No.
Ms. Phelps.
Yes.
Ms. Harvey.
Yes.
Mr. Fredu.
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson.
Yes.
And Ms. Page.
Yes.
That was a 2/3 vote, and so the motion passes. We revert now, Madam President, back to the original motion by Mr.
Yes, so the
McTwire.
original motion was made by Mr. McTwire, seconded by
Page.
Ms. Page. Thank you. And so we're ready for a roll call vote as well.
Mr. Danzy.
Yes.
Mr. McTwire.
Yes.
Mr. Benefield.
Yes.
Mr. Harris.
Yes.
Mrs. McGaskey.
Yes.
Ms. Palmer.
No.
Ms. Phelps.
Yes.
Ms. Harvey.
Yes.
Mr. Fredu.
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson.
Yes.
And Ms. Page.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you, Ms. Rebels. Mr. Danzy?
Item 9D, discuss and consider 2025-2026 Natchitoches Parish School Board yearly calendar.
Okay, we need a motion.
I'll offer.
I'll second.
Okay, we have an offer by Mr. Fredu and a second by Ms. Page. Is there any discussion to the calendar? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Danzy.
Yes.
Mr. McTwire.
No.
Mr. Benefield.
No.
Mr. Harris.
No.
Mrs. McGaskey.
No.
Ms. Palmer.
Yes.
Ms. Phelps,
Yes.
Ms. Harvey,
Yes.
Mr. Fredo,
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson,
Yes.
and Ms. Page.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. So now we will rewind the agenda back to the very beginning, and we're going to start with new business, item 4A. And I don't know who wrote this motion, but it's the longest one I've ever seen in my entire life. So if you'll bear with us. Discuss and consider approving attached resolution authorizing the superintendent to act in the name and on behalf of the school board for purposes of executing any easement or any other related documents deemed necessary in order to grant servitude and easement of the hereinafter described property. The property subject to this resolution are the following described properties to wit. Description of a 0.511 acre underground and above ground utility easement for Atmos Energy situated in Section 21, Township 11 North, Range 7 West, Natchitoches Parish. Dr. Eloy.
I'll offer that motion.
Second.
Thank you. We have an offer by Mr. Benefield and a second by Mr. Danzy.
This is a simple easement agreement with Atmos Energy for them to reach a oil pipeline or gas pipeline, not oil.
Don't say oil in here
I
because
know,
we'll get
I know.
excited.
I'm sorry. Gas pipeline, and they just need this relatively soon. And after talking with Mr. Shirley, this does nothing to Lakeview at all. So.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions?
It's up in Lakeview, you say? Where's the property at?
Yes, sir. It impacts Lakeview School is where.
Where exactly is this?
Section 21.
I mean, you don't have that
That's a
memorized.
but not much.
So you say they need it pretty quick. I mean, what's their
Easements
timeline?
are not
They
paid.
needed it before the end of March. And so Ryan went and looked at this with them, and Ryan wasn't able to be here tonight, but
So are they going to be digging up or disturbing any ground on our property?
not that we're aware of. No, it's an easement to get to this.
Get to
Yes.
or access.
Yeah.
So we just want to be sure, like, it's not in the middle of the football field, in the
Missing
middle of
from,
the baseball field.
If you see, it kind of explains it right now. Louisiana Highway 9. I'm not good at reading all that, but
And Mr. Shirley was with them, and he put his eyes on all of this.
yes, he's good with it. And that was, I actually asked him the specific thing. I said, does this do anything to Lakeview property, anything? And he's like, no, it's very cut and dry.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Revels. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Danzy?
Yes.
Mr. Matoyer?
Yes.
Mr. Benefield?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mrs. McGaskey?
Yes.
Ms. Palmer? Ms. Phelps?
Yes.
Ms. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Fredo?
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson?
Yes.
And Ms. Page.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Madam President, you're right up there with Mr. Wascom with reading these resolutions.
With a cold, I might add.
I'm telling you.
Okay. Item, new business, 4B, discuss and consider entering a contract with Joe Stamey and Taylor Townsend regarding Hurricane Laura-related legal services.
I'll offer.
Second.
Okay, we have an
Oh, I'm sorry.
we have an offer and a second. We'll now enter discussion.
Mr. Stamey is here. This is for the ongoing litigation concerning Hurricane Laura. And there's some movement. I don't know how much you can discuss, Mr. Stamey. But contract is necessary for that.
That's correct, Dr. Eloy. And things are moving very interestingly at this point in time, and some things that we can discuss at the next board meeting if y'all will give us opportunity to schedule a private meeting through executive session. But we're encouraged by some developments, not necessarily by what the other side believes that the matter is worth. In fact, they think it's worth still less than $1 million, and they're taking the position that all the damages are pre-existing. Our experts, including our engineer, takes a far different position and still maintains the position that we've advocated from day one. It's interesting how they've now increased their position by over 5 times compared to their original position, but they still think it's far different from what we have valued the losses to be. The bottom line is And by the way, Taylor asked me to extend his apologies. He had to be out of town, way out of town tonight, and couldn't be here with us. But as we both know, we're required to have a written contract, largely because ultimately we're going to be asking the federal judge to award all of our fees on top of what the court may award against the insurers themselves. So the goal is to have that. The source of that likely award would be a written contract. Hence the reason the judge is going to have ultimately evidence of the written contract and reflect in that contract what the actual contingency fee arrangement would be. So that's why we have that. And of course, this would be for the entire team of attorneys. There's just one contract and one amount pays for all counsel, and we're going to have a team for this. Is over a dozen attorneys will have touched this case, including New York attorneys, coverage attorneys, and others. So it's quite a team, and it's quite an undertaking. But the process is one, while substantial, we think at the end of the day, we're still going to be in good position, particularly so with regard to what we believe is their bad faith. And as a consequence, if that is established, the judge would be in a position to award not just attorney's fees on top of the compensatory awards, but penalties as well. So we remain optimistic, and we're up for the challenge.
And Mr. Walsman and I reviewed the contract as if we know more than the lawyer, but I will say this: the contract percentage in terms of it's very, I think, very fair, extremely.
It's
fair.
much less than the standard amounts. I can assure you that.
I'm glad you said that. I was just gonna.
That's right.
Thank you, Mr. Stamey. I really, truly appreciate the timing of this because at our town hall meeting last week,
yes.
you know, it was brought up that we weren't working with the insurance company or, you know, sitting on this and not doing anything about it. Whereas we do know we've been working on this for how long now?
Oh, goodness, we're up to 2 years now plus.
Yes.
And we've gone from New York to Baton Rouge and of course to Natchitoches. So we're actually now waiting on the rebuttal report from our own experts to the insurer's own expert reports. And our engineer, who is a part of the team, his reports come along very nicely. It's being peer reviewed, and when it's ready for submission, we're going to have an executive council or session meeting with y'all and present this report. I think you'll be very encouraged.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Any other questions or discussion? Okay, we have an offer and a second. If we could have a roll call vote.
Mr. Danzy?
Yes.
Mr. Metoyer?
Yes.
Mr. Benefiel?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mrs. McGaskey?
Yes.
Ms. Palmer? Ms. Phelps?
Yes.
Ms. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Fredu?
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson?
Yes.
And Ms. Page?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you very much. Item 4C, discuss and consider revisions to MPSB policy 613.00, visitors.
I'll offer.
I'll second.
Okay, we have an offer and a second.
Yes, ma'am. So this came in between because we had an issue at a school, and a principal contacted me about our banning policy. And one of the things that happened in our crosswalk when we moved over from the old policy to this policy, we lost some language in there that was essential to bring back. And that language starts at under authorized visitors. It starts where all the new piece is where it says any visitor who commits any of the following. And we really cleaned that up with the help of Mr. Danny Garrett, our attorney at LSBA. And he was very helpful. But we do not exercise this often, and principals do not exercise this unilaterally. They always call and discuss it with me. And there have been numerous times where they are told, no, it doesn't meet the criteria. You'll just have to deal with it in a different way. So we do not exercise this often.
But this does also apply to after-hours activities such as ball games and things like that.
Correct.
Because
yes,
I'm
sir.
looking at the 4 bullets at the bottom, and that's exactly where that would come into play. Okay.
So this policy revision is a great reminder that our policy manual is a living, breathing, fluid document. So thank y'all for finding the hole in this so we can get this repaired tonight. Any other questions or concerns? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Moving on to the consent agenda, item 4A through C. Do we have an offer?
I'll offer.
Second.
Okay, we have an offer by Metoyer, second by Danzy. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Informational reports. We do have our food service director here with us tonight. And thank you for waiting patiently. Yes, Ms. Shauna Hicks, welcome to the podium.
Actually, I have just updated your monthly reports. Probably the best litmus test each month is to see our daily production, and we are right there at about $20,000 a day. Our claim fluctuates because the number of days in a month fluctuates, but the students are eating well. Things are going well, as Mr. Wascom shared with you at the meeting last week. We are in the black, which is always a good thing, and I just want to extend our assurances that we will make a smooth transition with all that has happened tonight, and with our schools shifting around. We will take good care of our people, and we also have a plan. Do you have questions for me?
Ms. Hicks, what did you do at Natchitoches Central to have a 12% increase in participation on food? What did you do?
What did I do? We just cook it and feed them, Mr. Benefield.
So actually, Mr. Bitterfield, I think you answered your own question. Weren't you the one that said she was running the best restaurant in Natchitoches Parish?
That's right.
The most widespread one.
Biggest restaurant.
My
Biggest
eighth grader
restaurant.
went to the Natchitoches Central 8th grade day, and the biggest thing she was impressed with was the consistent burger line. So
That's right. You always have a choice. 3 of them there.
Thank you, Ms. Hicks.
Thank you.
Okay, our next informational report will be Federal Programs Monthly Report. Sarah Rashell.
Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
I shared with you that we just submitted our ESSER 4 report. This is not new funding. What we have to do is present to Louisiana the information regarding the activities and expenditures. This would be, as indicated, ESSER 4, so this is our fourth time reporting out. Overall, we were consistent in how we utilized those funds by investing in our teachers and our students, technology, continuity of services, capacity building. And so as I was compiling this information to submit on behalf of Natchitoches Parish, it reflected those things that were of high need for us to ensure that our students are back on track after COVID. And I think that, I know we've done that. So any questions about the ESSER 4 reporting?
I have no questions, but thank you for your diligent service there.
Okay.
It's greatly appreciated.
I do. I'm excited about speaking on our pre-K enrollment that is going on this week. This has been the best enrollment year that we've had, and I have to commend Ms. Melissa White, who took the lead with organizing our coordinated enrollment events, and Jana Maggio and Sakina Former. I do want to share with you briefly some early numbers because we are very excited about where we are. As of 3/13 so today at 11:30, we had 96 online applications. Of those, 52 were completely done. At that time, we had been to Fairview, Provençal, and Godana. Ms. Maggio just texted me. They're at LP Vaughan. They've been at LP Vaughan since 3 o'clock, and they're going to be there until 6:30. They had 40 applicants to come in that short amount of time, and they will be at LP Vaughan again tomorrow until noon. And so I hope you've been following our Facebook page, Natchitoches Parish Early Childhood Network. We have a new marketing company, Ugly Mug, out of Alexandria, and they are doing a dynamic job on just getting the word out and showcasing our beautiful explorers, pre-K explorers. So we're excited about that. Any questions?
So before there's been a deadline on this, right? With pre-K enrollment, is it still the same, or is things? I know last year there was some back and forth or something. There were some issues with some kids that didn't get signed up, I guess. Where are we? Is there a deadline to be signed up for pre-K, or how does it work in this year?
So we do have open enrollment year-round, but I will tell you that our funding depends on the number of students that we have enrolled by a certain date.
Okay.
And so, yes, we have open enrollment year-round. As long
what-
as we have the funding, we are putting students in seats.
It is better if they are signed up by when? When's for you to get that funding?
The end of May.
End of May. Okay.
Yes.
And I know you may have just missed it, Ms. Rachel, but when is Marthaville's Day? Did they have theirs? Or?
Marthaville did have theirs. I think we had 14 students not give you
Oh,
some
12.
exact numbers. I'm sorry, we had 13 students at Marthaville complete applications and 3 who are submitting information on tomorrow, so good numbers. Anything else?
That is incredible news. Thank you so much.
Excited. Thank y'all. Have a good night.
Thank you. Okay. As Ms. Palmer has exited the meeting, Mr. Benefield, I'm going to ask if you would please take over the Finance Facility Services and Insurance report for us.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. Item A, discuss the financial impact of international paper. I think we talked about that quite a bit at our committee meeting. Any further discussion?
Yes, sir. I have something.
Okay.
Mr. Lee, we in this report that we have in Consolidated 7, we have the 3 different taxes, correct? The BRE, the bond, and the special tax. My question is, with what we just voted on earlier with Goldana closure, what is the best route, or what do we have to do for that special tax to go away? Is it simply vote to not levy that tax next year?
What people voted for was the authorization for us to levy up to 10 mills.
Right.
We can levy less.
So in the resolution that we read that night before we voted, whereas it is the intent of the governing authority that the aforesaid tax is, if approved by voters, shall not be levied at any time after any school within the district has been closed by the governing authority. That was in our resolution, so I would assume that we would be on the same page to levying 0 mills if that school is closed.
Well, if that's in the resolution, that's what we're required to do.
Okay, thank you. So was that something we'll have to vote on for the next, I guess it would be 4 years?
Well, I'm going to present to y'all the levy, all of our levy items, probably sometime in June. That's when we would vote for that.
But we would have to do it in June and then 3 more times, right? We've done it once already, because it was a 5-year tax.
Correct. I guess so, yes, you're right.
Okay. Is there a way that we can get rid of that and not have to vote every year? Or do we know that detail? Is that something?
And now you're beyond my knowledge. Foley and Associates can help me with that one.
Okay.
Yeah, I would suspect they're going to vote. We'd have to vote for 0 mills each time.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
So the upkeep, keeping the lights and things on at Goldana would come out of Consolidated 7 BRE then?
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
Maintenance, yes.
When would we know what that type of cost would be? I mean, we're a ways out from that, you think, or?
Well, you're not operating a cafeteria. That's
Right.
pretty expensive. You're not keeping the ACs as low as they are. You still need to keep the place air conditioned, but you don't have to keep it as low as it is for occupancy.
Right. I mean, I know it's going to be minimal cost, but I would assume we're a ways from knowing that cost, right?
Yes, at this point, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wascom. And Mr. Fredo, I'm so glad you asked that question because I would like to create a Goldana committee and a NJH committee where we can have board members work directly with Dr. Eloy and Mr. Wascom to cover all of these items because we will have a lot of work to do over the next few months. And with the creation of these committees, they can report to the board every month and let us know what we need to know as far as the board keeping their word with everything that we've said so far and, any changes that may come up and things of that nature. So if you and Dr. Eloy are open to that, we would prefer that.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
I'm assuming you would love to serve on that committee, Chad.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we'll put you on the Goldana committee. Anyone else?
I'd like to be there too, as well as with
NJH as well.
NJH, because I think you ought to have some community leader from each one of those areas on there too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, any other Gold Honor Committee members that would like to help with that? And it's okay, if you're feeling shy tonight, you can text me later and let me know. Okay,
Ms. Palmer may, if we approach her, she may be willing to do that too.
okay.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, we'll definitely ask Ms. Palmer. And so NJH Committee, who would like to? Okay,
I will too.
okay. And that'll help streamline the information coming to the board because it would have already been presented to the committee, and then we can all be on the same page.
And board, I do want to make you aware, in anticipation of the possibility of this vote tonight, staff and I have prepared a letter to go out to impacted schools that gives them some information, what we can at this point. Not that we don't know some things, but some things have to come in pieces. And there will also be a survey going out to the folks at these schools a week from Monday to basically glean from them how we can best support them through the process of the move. So,
Thank you for doing that.
just part of the planning.
Thank you for having a plan. Mr. Benenfield?
Item 7A is a no action item. 7B, discuss and consider approving the A Heck of a Summer 2025 agreement. I'll offer that.
Okay, we have an offer and a second. And any discussion? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Danzy?
Yes.
Mr. Matoyer?
Yes.
Mr. Benefield?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mrs. McGaskey?
Yes.
Ms. Palmer? Ms. Phelps?
Yes.
Ms. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Fredu?
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson?
Yes.
And Ms. Page?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Madam President, that concludes the report.
Thank you, Mr. Benefield. Item 8, Personnel, Linda Director, HR Director. Linda Page, I'm so sorry. It's been a long night. I'm so sorry, Miss Linda. Item 8A, discuss and consider approving updated NPSB sick leave bank policy. Linda Page. And we'll need a,
Second.
all right, we have an offer and a second. And then we also have 2 people with us tonight who would like to speak. Our first speaker of the night will be Mr. Lincoln Hall. If you can make your way to the podium, and thank you so much for waiting through the meeting for us.
Good evening. My name is Lincoln Hall. I am a teacher at NCHS, and this is my 9th year as an employee of the Natchitoches Parish School Board. I'm speaking to you this evening to ask that you table the updated sick leave donation policy due to numerous concerns from myself and my colleagues. The original sick leave donation policy was simple, easy to use, and closely mirrored the language written in Act 115. Using the original policy, I was able to donate 20 days of sick leave to my wife, who will be giving birth to our second child next month. Without my donation, she would have run out of sick leave. The updated policy imposes conditions that will make it exceedingly difficult to donate sick leave. I'm concerned that some of these conditions do not comply with Act 115, particularly Sections A, B, and G under donor eligibility, Sections A through E of recipient eligibility, and Section C under other provisions. Under the new policy, my wife would not have been eligible to receive my donation of sick days. Section A, under recipient eligibility, states that teachers who are to be recipients shall have exhausted all current and accumulated regular sick leave and have used all 90 days of extended sick leave. This criteria alone effectively renders the policy useless for almost all teachers in the district. Furthermore, Section C under other provisions states that the fact alone that an individual has no accumulated sick leave does not justify any donation of sick leave to that person. On the contrary, that is the exact justification for donating sick leave to that person. In fact, that was my justification for donating sick leave to my wife. And most people would agree that was an appropriate and proper use of the district's original sick leave donation policy. For the past 5 years, NPSB has been nationally recognized for its approaches to teaching, learning, and student success. Our district now has that same opportunity to set the standard for the state of Louisiana on how to interpret and implement Act 115. Together, central office administrators can collaborate with teachers to produce a policy that is employee-friendly and free of unreasonable eligibility criteria. But most importantly, together we can produce a policy that is compliant with Act 115 and its intended purpose, which is to allow teachers to help other teachers in need. Once again, I ask that members of the board please table the updated sick leave donation policy in its current form. Thank you. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Our second speaker for the night is Dr. Jeremy Dowden.
Hi, my name is Dr. Jeremy Dowden. I'm a teacher at NCHS and the president of the local Federation of Teachers. I'm speaking to ask the board please table this updated sick leave policy, and I'm thankful for this opportunity. I'm thankful for this opportunity to voice the concerns I've heard from other teachers and staff about this new sick leave donation policy. Act 115 states that an employee may donate sick leave directly to another employee with the only stipulation that in an amount not to exceed 1/2 of the donated employee's accumulated leave. Act 115 also states that each city, parish, and other local public school board shall develop and implement a sick leave bank policy to allow for the donation of sick leave among teachers, with separate ones for separate support staff. The proposed changes to this policy would make it harder for our amazing employees to utilize the benefits that Act 115 provides. And so please table this updated sick leave donation policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dowden.
Madam President, in regards to these two gentlemen's discussion of this, I move that we table this item until we can further look into it.
Second.
I did want to just mention briefly a few things, because I'm in favor of what you're saying, Mr. Benfield, but I wanted to mention, number one, I appreciate the two gentlemen coming, because it
makes it real.
It makes it real, but it also, I appreciate that I hope they're here because we've created a culture that allows them to feel unencumbered to do this. The other thing I'll say is that we have sent this over to the lawyers to look over again because of their very concerns. Mr. Walscombe, if you go back up to the recipient eligibility number, letter A, I'm in total agreement. When we create policy, sometimes we do things due to logistical reasons and things that make sense in terms of making things flow at the district office. But upon reading this, and I talked to Ms. Crowley from the union, when someone uses extended sick leave, they're only getting a portion of their pay. So it really, and this is coming from the person who put this on the board docs, it's just, sometimes it hits differently. It is counter to the purpose of the policy if we keep that in there. So I would like y'all to table it, which you've already done, but I would also like the opportunity to, and perhaps these two gentlemen are the ones, and we can do it via email or whatever, to get some insight on specifically what they'd like to see. And then also, on the other side of that, we'll get with Mr. Geist to make sure we are in line, obviously, with Act 115. And I think we can bring y'all a really streamlined version of this, while still accommodating for some of the logistics stuff at the next board meeting.
In April.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Hall, it was very kind and considerate of you to consider your wife. And I hate to bring up the fact that possibly Dr. Eloy did not. So
We didn't have a sick leave bank policy at the time.
I'm just saying.
Well, our president is knocking the bark off tonight.
Thank you both.
I'm going to give you a quickie.
Pardon me, I'm so sorry. And we do have a motion to table this. So if we could have a roll call vote.
You had a second by Mr.
Yeah,
I
it's a
did.
second.
Yes, we have a motion and a second to table it.
Mr. Danzy?
Yes.
Mr. Matoire?
No.
Mr. Benefield?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mrs. McGaskey?
Yes.
Ms. Palmer? Ms. Phelps?
Yes.
Ms. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Fredu?
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson?
Yes.
Ms. Page?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. Item 8B, discuss and consider replacing the accounting manager job description with retirement coordinator accounting assistant job description. We'll need an offer.
I'll offer.
I'll second.
We'll have an offer and a second, and we can open the floor for discussion.
I keep doing that to you. I apologize. This is simply, we had a position that was already there of accounting manager. We still have not filled that position, and so it's it's not a new position except in the fact that we're taking that old one and redesigning what it is. But this is not in addition to anything extra. It's just we still have not filled that vacant position, and we're looking to go in a different direction. Sorry.
So it's not needed as it was, I guess is what you're saying.
In that old iteration, correct. We had to make big changes based on Mr. Wascom's vision and trajectory for the future.
Is the pay the same?
Mr. Wascom, it's less.
The pay is less.
It's an assistant job.
Yeah.
It's assistant job.
Okay, board members, we have any other questions or concerns? Okay. We are ready for a roll call vote.
Mr. Danzy,
Yes.
Mr. Matoyer,
No.
Mr. Benefiel,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Oh, yes.
Mrs. McGaskey,
Yes.
Ms. Palmer, Ms. Phelps,
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey,
Yes.
Mr. Fredo,
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson,
Yes.
and Ms. Page.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you, Ms. Revels. Item 8C, discuss and consider approving new job description, crossing guard. We'll need a motion.
Offer.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Ms. Page, a second by Mr. Danzy. And before we get, before you jump right in there, I do want to say that this information, of course, came from the town hall meeting. We do appreciate every bit of input we receive. And I would like to point out that this is proof that your board is working for you and hearing your concerns. Dr. Eloy.
We thank Ms. Johnson for bringing that up.
Yes, Ms. Johnson, I hope she's watching tonight.
So the reason that it is necessary, because we've had crossing guards, we have crossing guards, but those went through the HR and hiring process of the city. And so we had none on record, even though we've had these folks for forever. So we created a new one. I think we also updated the age. We want no one younger than 25, which I think everyone would agree. We also updated, increased the pay, because remember, these people are only working at most 4 hours a day. And so we increased the pay to 25. But this is so we're not criticizing the city, but sometimes city police isn't able to get folks, and we just think perhaps we could cast a larger net and perhaps get some of these people whenever we're recruiting for all the folks we're recruiting. So
I think that's why we had some people sitting in their cars.
yeah.
Okay, board members, any questions?
We're gonna give them the training and what they have to do.
We would still we still have a very good relationship with the city in terms, and they actually asked us to do this a while back. I have a meeting with one of the city police, one of the leadership of city police next week, and so we're going to ask them to still provide the training. But then I think they're going to be very excited that we are taking on the responsibility.
And they will still put units at high traffic areas too, right?
I have no indication that would change.
Okay, great.
We would not want that, and if it did change, we would request that it would go back.
What was that now?
He asked if we would still have the units in the area whenever that occurs, or whenever the high traffic times are.
We ought to go to the city council meeting and see, raise some hell and see if they'll pay for it.
If you go with me, Mr. Matoyer.
I don't disagree.
That's another idea.
All right, could be a cost share anyway.
So we now have a City of Natchitoches committee.
When is the meeting?
I think they've already had it this month.
All of us go.
You got to get on their docket.
So it says, and I may have missed what you said a while ago, I'm sorry, but job description. So are we creating new positions also?
No, for us to be able to hire, so we've already been hiring I'm sorry, they've been hired by the city, crossing guards. But for us in order to hire them and take control of the situation, which is what came out of that meeting the other day, because when we told the folks that we don't have control, they were kind of like, didn't get control, and we agreed with them. For us to be able to advertise for any position, we cannot do that without y'all approving a job description. And currently, there was no job description on the books.
So are we taking over all of the crossing guards?
At this point, that's not the case, but I do think that conversation is next. Because if we're hiring some and they have some already on the books, I think for next year, but again, we're already paying for them. It's just they were going through the city.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Okay. So the accountability is going to come from us.
Correct. So now, when you see someone sitting in their car, you can fuss at me.
So the pay was already coming from us, but we didn't have the account.
Yeah, okay, that's
Now
where
we're
I
gonna
was
have both.
Correct.
Or the oversight.
Correct.
And did we check with the state to see what it would cost? Or could they put us one like in front of college?
So I have told the mayor that I want to talk to him about it. He's been a little busy with them running out of water yesterday. And I don't know how much ability he has. I think we put a call into DOTD, but we have yet to get a call back because I don't think they just give easy answers on those type things. But we are in the process of trying to have conversations about that.
The Director of Student Services, where are they housed at?
Oh, that's Miss Pinckney.
Us.
Oh.
We're saying
That's who they're under.
we tried to think about the person who would make the most sense, and she got the short end of the stick.
You don't think that's gonna impose on all the other responsibilities that she currently has?
She is a superstar, and I think she's going to do amazing with it.
I know she'll do a good job. I'm just thinking about the added responsibility.
What we really expect to happen, she's the director. What we really expect to happen is Mr. Miller, who is the truancy officer, when he's driving around, it will take no effort for him to drive around and say, oh, it's working, or oh, they're in their car. And then we'd go through the normal HR processes to address that individual. So really not a whole lot of actual added work to Ms. Pinckney's schedule.
It's good to hear.
Okay, any other questions? Roll call vote, please, Ms. Revels.
Mr. Danzy?
Yes.
Mr. Matoir?
Yes.
Mr. Benefiel?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mrs. McGaskey?
Yes.
Ms. Palmer? Ms. Phelps?
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Fredo?
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson?
Yes.
And Ms. Page?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you very much. Board members, before we adjourn, I do want to thank you so much for your respect and working together and letting everybody talk one at a time. We handle our business so much more fruitfully and directly when we are able to stop and listen to each other as they complete their thought. And so thank you so much for your respect. We've had some heavy topics here today. That's not the end of it. I know we'll have some more. And thank you all for your hard work. Thank you for listening to the community. And thank you for your service to the Natchitoches Parish School Board. Mr. Matoir?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All right, meeting is adjourned.